Hey, welcome back to Fishing with Nordbye. I'm out here in the Tightlines UV shop today. Gonna do a little pond box review. I know a few of you guys have requested, what do I put in my pond box when I go fishing? I reference it a lot. It has everything I need when I go to a pond to fish for almost any type of fish I'm fishing for in northwest Missouri here. So mainly bass, but also panfish, crappie, and bluegill. So I'm going to go through this today and show you guys what is inside of it. I'm also going to be announcing the winner of the 5,000 subscriber giveaway. A huge thank you to all you guys who signed up on my channel to win that. Awesome gear provided by some of my sponsors. Just some awesome stuff. Whoever wins this is going to be real lucky. So stick around to the end to find out who wins the 5,000 subscriber giveaway. And then I want to tell you guys happy Thanksgiving. The Lord has blessed all of us so much, and we have so much to be thankful for if we choose to be thankful for it. We have a home, we have food. You guys are watching a YouTube video right now, so you have access to the internet. It is amazing. There's so much to be thankful for. God has blessed me so much in my life, and I can't thank Him enough for all He does. It's a blessing to go out and fish and make all these videos for you guys, but I also work a full-time job on top of that. So I don't have a lot of free time, and when the fish aren't biting, sometimes it's tough to make videos for you guys. Like right now, the fish are not biting because it's cold outside. Here in Missouri where I'm at, the ponds are all iced over, but they're only about an inch thick, and then the main ramp at my home lake's iced over, so I can't really dump my boat in without breaking the tail light. I did that last year. So I decided to make this pond box episode. I hope you guys enjoy. But yeah, just remember to be thankful today. Just think of all the things you're thankful for. And I hope you guys spend some time with your families and just enjoy the day. So with that being said, let's jump into this pond box episode. The first thing about a pond box is you want something that's pretty light that you can carry with you. Normally I'm carrying all my camera gear, so I especially want something that's light. In this little box right here, I can stuff in about any bag, and I have packed every lure I think I need at a pond inside of this box. So I'm going to open it up, go through it with you guys. Feel free to drop some comments down below, any questions you guys have. I know everybody has different preferences on baits, but I think I have everything I need to fish for these bass in all different presentations and catch them at any time throughout the year. So we're going to open it up here, and I'm just going to start on this left side and work all the way over. As you can see, it's kind of stuffed, but I have to do that just so I can take all the lures I need to. When I'm going to a new pond, I don't know what I'm going to be using. So the first thing in my box are some jigs. If I'm fishing a pond that is more rocky or doesn't have as many weeds, I'm probably going to tie on a jig if the water's above 50 degrees. Typically I like throwing a green pumpkin jig with a Tightlines UV jig trailer on it, or I'll throw a black and blue jig with a Tightlines UV black and blue jig trailer on it. It's about my go-to. These are wired jigs. You guys have seen me fish them in my last video, fishing that tournament down at the Ozarks. We got 10th place out of about 100 boats. Pretty awesome. But yeah, that's just kind of my go-to jig. It stands up and you always hook them on the roof of the mouth. Pretty awesome jig. They don't spit it too easily. As I'm going through this box, I'm going to tell you kind of how to fish the baits I'm talking about as well. So with this jig, I typically drag it on the bottom. I'll cast it out there, drag it along the rocks, and the fish just come by and pick it up. Looks like a little crawdad to them. Sometimes if they're not biting too well, they want a reaction bite, and if you hop it or swim it and pop it, they'll come out and grab it and react to it as well. There's the black and blue jig I got in my box. Again, it's a wired jig, and in these ponds I like throwing a 3/8 ounce most of the time, just because you're normally not fishing over 10 feet deep, and it doesn't catch up on the moss as much. So yeah, definitely use those a lot. Next up in the pond box is a black and blue whisker beaver. It is my wife's favorite bait to throw, and I'll throw it on a Texas rig. So I got the plastics in a compartment here, and then I always split the craw on the beaver. That way it just gives a little more action. But these whisker beavers by Tightlines UV have some awesome action. I normally throw black and blue in these ponds just because the water's a little murkier. Next up in the pond box, we got chatterbaits or bladed jigs, whatever you want to call them. These are awesome bladed jigs. They're actually called a hybrid vibe. They have deer hair in them as well as skirt material. And then I'll throw this pearl one a lot in clear ponds, and then in murkier ponds or on cloudy days I'll throw this black and blue one. Normally you want the fish to see them a little better. And on the cloudier days, the fish are normally a little more active, so I'll tip it with a craw trailer that flaps a lot. But on the sunnier days, I'll throw this white one, and I'll tip it with a chunky shad swim bait by Reaction Strike, shad color, and the bass normally come out, eat these pretty well in ponds. If there's too much grass in these ponds, I'll switch over to a spinnerbait. The spinnerbait I like throwing is actually my signature bait, Nordbye's Finesse spinnerbait. It's made by Fish Hog Tackle. I actually caught a 7.5 pounder earlier this year on this bait. I'll link that video down below. You guys can go watch it. Just a giant bass, but these spinnerbaits work really well in ponds, and I normally bump them along the bottom, trying to bump stumps, rocks. They come through grass pretty well, and I like to just slow roll this spinnerbait. It works really well in cold weather with this turtleback blade. Allows you to slow down, and it thumps really good, and those bass will just come up behind it and suck it in. Next up in the pond box, we got a couple Topwater baits. One is more of a walking bait, and the other one is a popper. These are both Boyd Duckett brand baits. This walking one I'll throw when the fish are a little more active or on a windier day, and I'll walk it back and forth kind of like a spook, but it also has a chugging lip on it, so it makes a little pop as well. It's got some rattles too. And then this shad colored popper, I'll throw it on calm days, make a big bloop, and let it sit, let the ring of water disappear around it, and normally while it's sitting there, those bass will come up and eat it. Two awesome topwater baits when there's no grass on your ponds. If there is grass on your ponds, I'll switch over to a buzzbait if it's kind of dispersed grass. If it's clumpy grass, we'll get to the frogs here in a minute, but for dispersed grass that you can reel a buzzbait through, I will use either a black and blue one or kind of white and chartreuse. You guys are seeing that trend. That is just kind of normal go-to baits for moving baits on colors. This black and blue one I'll use again on your cloudier days or in ponds that are really murky water, hard to see. Those fish will see the shadow better when they look up to feed, and it works really well. And then I'll throw the Boyd Duckett white and chartreuse buzzbait on your clear ponds or really sunny days. Just a little brighter colors, the fish seem to like it better. Nothing better than a topwater bite. What I like to do is reel these buzzbaits as slow as I can while it's still making a good plopping noise on the top of the water. The next topwater bait I'll throw is a frog. I got 4 of them in here just because I use them a bunch. I got your traditional, just hollow body. These are all live target frogs. If I know there's some big bass in the lake, I'm probably going to throw a big size frog, but if I know there's a ton of little bass in the lake or they're being really finicky, I'll switch over to the smaller size frog. As you guys can see, that one is really scuffed up. Caught a lot of fish on that smaller frog, and kind of same deal on color choices. In your clear ponds where the fish are a little more finicky, I'll use this more natural frog looking color, but on your muddier ponds, I'll use a black and blue normally. Normally when you're fishing on top of the moss, the fish can't really see it anyway, so whatever you can do to create more of a shadow is usually a good idea. If there's a little open water, but too much grass to throw a buzzbait in, I like throwing this poppin' frog. Creates a good splash on top of the water, and it can go through the moss really well. You can chuck these frogs really far, and they don't fill up with water too easily. Definitely my favorite frogs to fish, and they have a soft hollow body. Get really good hook sets on them. Just let the bass take it for a second or two. Next up in the pond box, we got a couple crankbaits. This bait right here I've caught I don't know how many hundreds of bass on. It is a tiny little, they call it a Popeye, but it is so beat up. It's a silver shad color with a black top. I've caught so many fish on this bait. Strike Pro makes it. And then I will throw a black and chartreuse square bill by Boyd Duckett baits. Normally if there's some timber or rocks that the bass are hanging on, you always want to try to bump your crankbaits off of something when you're reeling them back in. Next up, we got 4 kinds of worms I really like taking to ponds. The first 2 are Senkos. I'll bring a natural looking one, and then I'll bring a black and blue one. These are actually tight lines Uvinkos. The blood color is probably my favorite one, and I like to wacky rig them and let them sink down slow, weightless in these ponds. Another option's a 6-inch finesse worm. Tight Lines UV makes these as well, and I'll throw them on a little shaky head, and that way they sink to the bottom and you just bounce them off the bottom if there's not too much grass. Really tricks finicky bass into biting when they're not wanting to hit anything else. I like throwing green red flake in this one. When it's really cold outside and your pond water is cold, I like downsizing to a 4-inch finesse worm. This is actually a worm I've built into a Nico rig. I've glued a lead ball into the tip of this worm and put an O-ring on it, and I'll use a tiny little weedless wacky hook, and I'll just bounce this worm off the bottom as slow as can be. This is like a 1/16 ounce weight, so this lure barely sinks down in the water. I'll throw it on 8-pound test with my spinning gear, and you'll catch fish in really cold water with this bait. Another bait I really like throwing in cold water is this little T-Craw by Tightlines UV. It's got whiskers on it, and I'll throw it on a little Ned rig head, and I'll fish it on 8-pound test, and kind of the same way I fished that little Nico rig. You just cast it out there, slowly hop it off the bottom, and I use a 1/10 ounce Ned rig head, and I want the smallest hook I can get on that head, just because when you're using a spinning rod, you barely have to set the hook, and that'll go right through the roof of the fish's mouth, and you'll get really good hook sets. When you get a thicker wire hook, you really got to set that hook harder, and if you're only using 8-pound test, you run the chance of breaking off when you're setting that hook harder, and I don't like doing that, because a lot of times when the bass eat these little Ned rigs or the Nico rig, they will swallow the whole thing, and their teeth will cut that line, especially if you're using fluorocarbon, which is what I like to use. So now let's get into the hooks and weights. Looks like a mess, but actually has everything I need. All my terminal tackle right there. I got a few more weights in here, but we're gonna go through these hooks real quick, show you what each one does and how it's specific to each situation. First off, the weights, I use them on a Texas rig. They slide up and down. I'll put them on before the hook and rig the plastics weedless with these. And then I got a variety of wide gap size hooks in here. That way I can use any size bait in my box with a Texas rig, basically any soft plastic. Come through the weeds really well that way. Also rig my Senkos on a Texas rig weightless without that weight, and throw it and let it sink down in the moss if I'm not fishing it wacky style. The next hook, I got 2 different kinds of wacky worm hooks. This one right here has weed guards on it that are split, and I'll use it on bigger Senkos. And this one right here has a little plastic weed guard you put over the tip of the hook. I really like using that and pairing it up with the Nico rig. Just bounces off the bottom really well, and gets good hook sets on those fish. The majority of the hooks in my box are all wide gap hooks, just because I use a lot of Texas rigs.
You see, guys, this one right here is the juice. This one right here is the only thing this man ever throws. He's lying to you. It's all you need in your box.
Yeah, we got Mr. Etau over here critiquing me.
Hello. No, I'm trying to actually work while this man keeps talking and making us be quiet.
Yeah, you got a little glitter on there.
Oh, I've got a lot of glitter on my.
Oh, wow.
Look at all my.
Yeah, you do. Nathan's back there packaging some baits.
I'm bedazzling myself. You got some glitter.
Do I really? I've had glitter on me this whole video. Next up on hooks, we got a swim bait hook. I'll carry a couple extra chunky shads in my box, and I'll rig these weedless on a swim bait hook. Comes through the weeds pretty well, and get good hookups on those when they're chasing shad and you don't want something big and bulky. And then you heard me talk about shaky heads. I got a couple different kinds here. I typically go with a spot remover. This is a 1/8 ounce, and I like the screw-on heads. This one is actually a push-on head when the bait goes on. This one is a screw-on head, but it is just a ball head shaky head. It is not a flat spot remover. I like the spot remover because they stand up on the bottom. But these ball ones get the job done, especially in ponds. I'm not too picky. These fish are probably going to eat it. But when I'm at the lake, I tend to go with the ones that stand up. So that's my hook selection. Gets the job done for about everything I've had to do this year. I didn't show you guys the Ned rig hook just because I ran out of them. I used them a ton, but they will be in some upcoming videos for sure. The last items in my box are for panfish. You guys have given me a ton of crap about this red and white bobber, but man, I catch more fish on this little bobber. The fish don't even care about the bobber. Yeah, I could spend some money, not much money, and buy some slip bobbers, which I recommend you do, but I have so many of these laying around that I'm not gonna go out and do that when I can use these. I guess I'm just old school, not wanting to throw stuff away. I'll use these bobbers when the fish are being really finicky and I want my jig to go down 5 or 6 feet, and just slow roll it when the cold weather's in effect, and the bluegill and crappie aren't wanting to bite. I carry a very limited selection of crappie and bluegill baits because there is only one color that I've found catches them year-round in about every condition I face, and it catches them pretty consistently. You guys have probably seen me catch a ton of fish on it, and that is a black and chartreuse jig right there. In the springtime, I like to use this curly tail. The crappie are spawning and the bluegill are spawning later spring, and they're just more active and they want to chase something, and I'll pair it up with this 1/16 ounce head, throw it on about 6-pound test, gets the job done really well. And then later in the summer, or when the water's colder, I will use this little tube jig. These are both Tightlines UV jigs. This one's actually a little grub, and that one is a tube jig. Catch a ton of fish on both. This is just a more subtle presentation. If the fish are real active and I'm right in the middle of the crappie spawn and I know there's some big ones to be caught, I will throw this black and chartreuse core grub on a 1/8 ounce head, and that is about all I use for my bluegill and panfish when I go to these ponds. Now I will break out the fly fishing stuff, and that is not in this box. I am specifically fly fishing if I take all that gear. Maybe if you guys want me to explain what's in my fly fishing box sometime, I can show you that, what I take along with me. How about you guys drop me a comment if you want to see a video explaining kind of what I take with me when I go fly fishing. Just gonna put everything back in the box here, kind of made a mess. You gotta sort it pretty well or it doesn't fit in here. This is a tiny box for a ton of different baits. But again, that's all you really need to go fishing at a pond. If you think I left something out, drop a comment down below and tell me what I left out. Like I said, you can catch fish on about anything at ponds, but this pretty much covers the basics of what I need when I go to a pond. Thank you guys for requesting this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little something. And if you have any questions about the baits I showed or anything like that, or how to fish them, just ask me. Feel free to. I can't thank you guys enough. And now let's get on to the 5,000 subscriber giveaway. We're going to do a random giveaway picker to see who wins. And just shoot me a message on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube with your address, and I will get all this shipped out to you. You're going to be one lucky person. Here we go. Hey, thanks for sticking around past the giveaway. I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about the Tightlines UV shop. Hey, thanks for sticking around past the giveaway. I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about the Tightlines UV shop. It is pretty awesome. We got a ton of soft plastics. We got some awesome jerseys, some dry fit material. These ones are really awesome fishing in the hot sun. I got this green chartreuse one. This shop is right next to Mazinga Lake, my home lake, so come check it out. Typically they're open 9 to 5. Even during the winter, they said, but definitely open more in the summer on Saturday and Sunday as well. If you see that open sign on when you drive by the shop, come check it out. We got some awesome signs. I need this bass sign to light up in my house. Ton of whisker baits, robo worms, swim baits, curly tail grubs for walleye fishing, more swim baits, beavers, jig trailers, Senkos, giant 7-inch Senkos. We even got some UV crankbaits. We got some chatterbaits. Look at the size of the bladed jig on that. If you like using a chatterbait, you gotta check that out. We got some giant swim baits, hand poured. We got some giant crankbaits for muskie and stuff. Look at that. Try trolling that sucker around for a muskie. There's a ton of stuff to check out in this shop. And if you hadn't seen, I've been walking on a purple floor, fish with UV sunglasses. You got a bass, you got a walleye. Pretty awesome building. You guys should come check it out. But anyways, thanks for watching. God bless you guys. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll catch you next time on Fishing with Nordbye.